John, welcome back.
Thank you.
And you're joined with part of our new investment team in Ruaridh, Kilgour, and the Barrowman. John, tell us about today's announcement and what attracts you to working alongside our new team.
Okay, well, this has been in the works for a long time. And I was just talking to Ruaridh earlier and I owe his father an apology because I was referring to him as his grandfather before. But we've established that in 1990 I met with his father and with Johnny Urquhart and other directors to talk about how I might get involved going forward. So what goes round comes round. I think there are two strands here. One strand goes back to Craig Easton's development team, which I got a great deal of pleasure out of watching, but unfortunately very few of them went on to play for the first team. But I used to go up to Kelty because we used to play up there, and therefore I was able to see the developments that took place at the ground. And also the Fife FA had a number of evening meetings up there, so I was able to see a lot of what had been done in terms of adding, as I called it, containers, but for hospitality and for fan functions, and was very impressed. So I'd been watching that with great interest. And in a sad way, I contrast that with Cowdenbeath, where they've unfortunately been on the slide. So very impressed. Didn't really know who was behind it, but they were definitely worth watching. And then when Stephen McDonald joined the board 3.5 years ago, he spent time to find his feet. He became chairman pretty much, is it a year ago now, just over a year ago? But he felt that it was a while before he got his feet under the table. I think on a couple of occasions, Davey, he's articulated that running a football club is very different from a normal business and it's a learning process. But Stephen was looking to bring more people in. He talked to a lot of people. A lot of people said no, too difficult for various reasons. But then he was able to bring in Alan Halliday, and we'd had a couple of well-known mistakes in player registrations in the past, and we've had a couple of ones that we screwed up, but fortunately not many people know about it. So it was important that we got that under control. And Alan was the one who had the contact with Kelty, with Dean, and with Andrew. So he suggested that we should start talking to them around Christmas. And Patra and I went to watch the Dunfermline-Kelty game, or the Kelty-Dunfermline game. We had a great time. It was great to be back out on terracing. And we spent time in the hospitality social club afterwards, so we could just get a feel for what had been achieved there. Now, at the same time, we'd also have been talking to Colin Smart for an extended period. Colin's wife said, no, I'm not getting involved in Raith Rovers. We've got opportunities at our new business. But in, I believe, January last year, his wife was kind enough to say, okay, if that's what you want to do. And so he joined the board, but still in the throes of significant construction and planning up there, so didn't have as much time. So you then suddenly got Stephen, Alan Halliday, Colin Smart. Ruaridh had been involved indirectly during COVID, not just for Raith Rovers, but whenever you go to other boardrooms, quite often someone will come up and say, oh, you guys did a great job for us during COVID with the ticket scheme. And is the guy here would like to say thank you. Now, Rory's number one priority is growing his business. You know, we want that to be mega successful. But he has been kind enough to say, okay, I'm willing to be more formally involved rather than just behind the scenes. So that really was most of the consortium. And then we've got the guy we love to hate, because we've all shouted at him in the past when he was wearing the dreaded black and white stripes of Dunfermline and marauding in front of the South Stand. And Andrew's been involved with Raith Rovers through Joma because he was our rep. And at that time he made some very good suggestions, some of which we followed up on, some of which we didn't. And has obviously got experience on the football side. So suddenly we're looking at the possibility of having a dream team. But in a previous session, Davey, I remember talking about we needed someone with passion. Now we've got the shyest man with the most passion, and he should be here today, and that's Dean. And Dean McKenzie has done a tremendous job at Kelty. And it's just infectious listening to him. And my dull, boring messages, as you've heard me say so often, is that Raith Rovers, the tortoise wins the race. But we've had all these plans. We've had these plans for years, and we've not been able to implement them. We were able to implement the artificial surface purely because David Sinton was willing to take that on board and drive it. We were very lucky that we were able to get the new floodlights in before electricity prices went through the roof. Unfortunately, we didn't replace the old electrics, so we had the incident at the Dunfermline game where we fried the board. So suddenly, we've now got people who are committed, who are willing to invest time. And time's more important than money. You know, in the football business, it's unfortunate in certain respects, but in Scotland, your season depends financially on where you finish up, and if you draw Rangers or Celtic away in one of the cups. So for me, we're getting people who know what it should look like, and each person's bringing a different set of skills to the party. Stephen's been soldiering on as chairman almost on his own for a year. We had to change that. The current board of directors, or the one for the last year, has just not been able to function properly for a variety of reasons, one of which is that I'm in Thailand. So that had to change. And I now think we've got the pieces to start taking us to the next level and definitely implementing some of the plans that we've had for years. At the AGM, I had the supporters document from 2005. And what Dean and Andrew are going to put in place is not that much different. It's about sustainability, it's about being part of the community, it's about having the best team we can, it's about having a football pathway. How can we link up the community club with the football club and show players that they can go all the way through? So that was why in our last video, many people commented they had never seen me so upbeat. And I'm very upbeat. But as I said before, we're 99.9% there. We just got to get the last 0.1% done. And then I think the timing's right. It's the end of a season. We've got a squad that's in transition. We've got a manager who had a whole bunch of external challenges to face this year, ranging from Mike Delios to huge injuries to other bits and pieces that we won't go into. But I think we've got a really good platform. And I'm looking forward to being able to watch games from Thailand in the evening without having to rush to my bed at half-time because it's just too difficult, and coming back to see some of the improvements that I believe they're going to start to roll out in the close season.
Let's come across to yourselves. That's an interesting run through with the sense of positivity that I was kind of expecting from you, John. Let's start with introductions, and let's start looking at the overarching investment that's going to be made. Andy, Ruaridh, tell us about your individual roles, but firstly, can you tell us about what will the investment look like and where will the money go?
In terms of my role, I'll be here day to day. I'll be assuming the position of CEO. As John said, I think, when you're in a period of growth and trying to build and develop things, and there's obviously an investment that needs to be had, but I think the more important factor is the drive on a daily basis, someone driving it, pedalling what the change and what we're trying to do, with the passion and the energy that takes. It's a big job. There's a lot of change that needs to happen if we want to get to where we want to get to. But you know that will come over time, and there will be a passion and an energy on a daily basis that will drive that. It's maybe not been there in the past.
Your CV is rich in football administration, from your degree through your work with Joma. What will that bring to Raith Rovers in terms of extra value?
Yeah, I mean, I think I touched on it last night. I've been fortunate to earn a living for 23 years out of professional football. Again, varied 16 years as a player and a few roles since. I think I bring a unique set of eyes, a different perception. Maybe I can sort of balance it. There's always that trade-off between what a player thinks and what the people running the club think. So I think I can bring a balanced view to that. I've got experience on both sides. So yeah, I'm just really excited. There's again, I keep using the word passion, but it absolutely is. I've got a passion for football, but I've also got passion for the business side of football as well. So I think that's really important, and I hope that can be seen in the things we're going to implement in the near future.
Before coming to Ruaridh, I'm going to ask this obvious question and put it out there. You've been responsible for wearing a number of badges in your chest, and indeed putting those badges on various teams through your work with Joma. You told me last night there's only one badge that you're interested in now.
Absolutely, I'm a Raith Rovers fan. To be honest, I have been for the last sort of 5 months. It's sort of consumed us every day. It's been a long, frustrating at times period, but it's worth it. Yesterday was a long day, but I walked into the house almost midnight last night and I was full of energy. Bounced up out of bed this morning. I think that tells you exactly where my attitude is, and as I say, again, that word energy. I'm absolutely a Raith Rovers fan now.
Ruaridh, you are indeed a lifelong Raith Rovers fan, and I know that we've chatted, and it almost seems a bit surreal for you, this kind of transition and this journey that you've been on. And here we are filming what's a reveal for a whole new chapter in the club's future. Talk us about what your position is going to be and what you bring to the table.
So I mean, to give you a bit of background about me, so when I graduated from university back in 2014, I set up a social media marketing company with my now business partner, and 9 years on, we're one of the biggest kind of social media marketing companies in the UK and Brazil in the football and betting industry. What my involvement is going to look like is kind of not so much day to day, but more on a consultancy basis on the digital side of things. So helping out with the social media strategy, helping out with the website, working with the RaithTV guys to try and make sure that we improve the communication all around the club with the supporters and engaging with younger supporters. I've said it from day one, from my involvement, RaithTV is something that we do Premier League standard. I think there's other areas that we could improve on with our digital strategy. So that's something that I hope to get stuck into. Like I said, it won't be on a day-to-day basis, but I'll try and give as much time as I can whilst also managing my own business.
Thanks for the kind words from our volunteers. But one of the comments that you made in the discussions that really kind of struck a chord with me was that you kind of feel a bit reinvigorated actually about being a Raith Rovers fan. Maybe kind of some of the passion had drifted a wee bit over time, and that's not the case now. Yeah,
so I mean, a lifelong Raith Rovers fan, as John touched on. My dad, he had 2 spells at the club on the commercial side. I've been a programme seller at 12 years old. I was a ball boy at 28 years old during the COVID season. I've been involved in many different capacities, from the Copa Shirt project, which is something I took on myself as part of the Raith Forum, which raised, I think, the best part of £50,000 profit for the club. John touched on the Donate a Ticket campaign that I was part of during COVID. I think that raised about £25,000 for the club. So I have been involved in a number of different capacities, and also most recently the shirt sleeve sponsor. It's my company that sponsors the sleeve for the home shirt this season and the away shirt last season. So I've been involved in many different capacities, but I mean, to be sat here now where I am I couldn't be prouder. And Andy said about how he jumped out of bed this morning. I wasn't the same, because I don't think I really slept much last night with the excitement and also nerves about being involved, but I couldn't be prouder to be in this seat just now.
John's given us some detail about the other members of the investment group. Let's kind of work through them just so we can be clear on what their roles are going to be, what their skill sets are. Steve McDonald remains as chairman.
Yeah.
So what was really kind of struck by was a line from Steve where he said, talk is cheap, we want to be judged on our actions and outcomes. Is that your kind of working mantra?
Absolutely. It's easy to talk, isn't it, in life, and we can all make plans and show plans, and we're going to be judged on action, and I think the fans will see that pretty soon. Obviously it will be staged. We can't do everything yesterday. That's unfortunately not the position we're in, but I think the fans, you know, certainly when they come back here for the first game of next season, they'll see a remarkable difference in terms of what the place looks like and hopefully on the pitch as well.
So Colin Smart comes in as vice chair, a man with an impeccable business profile, and as important in these parts, 70 years of supporting Raith Rovers. It's a group that are rich in business heritage as well, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. I think every single person in the group has experience running their own business. And like John said, I mean, I think the best thing about this group is the diverse range of skills that we're all going to bring. There's not any passengers here at all. We're all putting money into the project, but also we're going to be putting a lot of time in. And I think especially Dean and Andrew are going to be here day to day, putting in a lot of graft, a lot of time into trying to make this back to a sustainable football club.
Great. Andy, we'll come on to Dean McKenzie. He'll assume the role of general manager. I know that he's a real believer in the kind of boots on the ground leadership model. Tell us about Dean. Tell us about his kind of work ethic, and if you could tell us why move from Kelty to Raith Rovers.
Yeah, I mean, I won't speak for Dean. It's probably something that he has to speak about in the near future. I think you'll do well to get him in front of a camera. As John touched on, he's a very shy individual, but what he is he's the most driven human being I've ever met in my life. He really is. It's on a daily basis. He's so intense, but he's so driven in how he lives his life. It's remarkable to watch. It really is. I've not met a person like him, and he'll bring that, and people around Raith Rovers will see that very, very, very soon on a daily basis. So he is a remarkable human being, and people will understand that. People talk about Kelty Hearts and budgets and all that. That's not what's built Kelty Hearts. It's the drive on a daily basis. That's what's behind Kelty Hearts, not money. It's different, as John said, that money can come and go. It's easy to come by if you look in the right places. But it's that drive and determination to also knowing what good looks like. I think we can be driven, but not in the right way, in the right direction. But knowing what good looks like and implementing it and bringing it. Talk is cheap, as we say, but actually putting it into practice and delivering it is. And Dean will bring that. That's what he's done. He's proven, not just in football, in business, and he'll bring that to Raith Rovers. And you'll all see that.
And let me tell you a Dean McKenzie story. We have lots of internal politics at Raith Rovers between Stark Spark Properties and the football club. Who's responsible for lining the pitch? Well, it needs to be properly lined because we play in the SPFL. But the community foundation use it all the time. Okay, well, we'll get somebody in to line the pitch, and that's £500. Dean said, no, I'll be down there and I'll line it myself. And this was long before he was involved. And that's
morning of the Motherwell game.
Yeah, and
7 o'clock in the morning, I was here lining the pitch.
That's the type of guy we're getting. Things will happen.
And why move from Kelty to Raith Rovers, and why now?
Yeah, again, I won't speak for Dean, but I think in my understanding it's a challenge. It's the energy getting out of bed in the morning. I think 10 years at Kelty, I think primarily with the burden on his shoulders as an individual. I think it was important, and it's something we spoke about coming here. It's a group, it's very much a group effort. There's support, it's not all going to fall on his shoulders. I've been at Kelty for the last 2 years, which I think I would hope I've been a help to Dean. But I know that burden is sort of weighed. It's his club, it's his hometown. He was born in the village. I think after 10 years, I think that's potentially worn them down a little bit, that burden and the responsibility. So I think he's just looking for the new challenge. As I say, he's very driven, and he needs challenges in life, whatever that be, business or football. He needs to feel that. And I certainly, over the last, as I say, 5 months, it's been a challenge even to get to this point. But every day, yeah, there's been wobbles. We've all had wobbles in different days. It's who motivates the motivator at times. But he's been incredibly driven to get to where we are today. And yeah, he's a big part of why we are here as Dean McKenzie.
We'll take that challenge on at RaithTV, and we'll see if we can get him in front of the camera. We've succeeded in the past, so we'll take your good luck on that one. Alan Halliday makes up not only the last member of the consortium, but the last member of our board, well-known face round about the ground. He'll continue as football operations manager. I'm right in saying that you know, he's got such a drive to see Rovers as part of the kind of local community. When Rovers are doing well, the town does well. Can you tell us anything more about his day-to-day role? Will he be boots on the ground, as we say?
No, he has a career, he has a job outside of his hobby, his interest in football. What he is a football man. All his life he's been involved in football in some sort of capacity, playing and running clubs. So he's a football man, he's a football nut. He knows everything that needs to be known about football, particularly in Fife, in the local area. He's also a local businessman, and as you rightly said, it's important for him to see the local community flourish. And I think if we've got a strong Raith Rovers, I think that brings a strength to the local town as well. So he's very passionate, again, about football and about local business. So he'll be a great addition. He gets things done. He's one of these guys, if you know, you get them in life and they get things done by hook or by crook, he gets things done. So it's incredible talent as well, I think.
Okay. And he's got experience from kind of senior committee level down, so I'm assuming that he'll represent the club right up through the SPFL.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a minefield.
Absolutely.
It's not exactly a very enjoyable part of the job. I would say it can be tedious, but he's got great experience in that, and I think again that's a skill set that's required when you're running a football club.
And it's not just SPFL; it's also SFA, and they can be even more difficult sometimes to deal with.
Yeah.
So that's what John describes as the dream team. Let's get to the kind of meat and the bone, the bits that supporters are kind of forward fast and saying, yeah, but what's coming? So he's purchased a 51% stake in the football club. Where is your investment going? I mean, having been fortunate enough to be at the presentation last night and had some discussion leading up to this, it seems that it's primarily about regenerating income streams, and it's about actually building up from the actual foundations of Starks Park. Tell us about the plans and the aspirations.
Excuse me.
Okay, the plans have been there for a long time, but nothing's happened. And Andrew and Dean were kind enough to visit me, was it between Christmas and New Year?
Yeah.
And we went through a lot of what was gathering dust. And they've taken that base, they've refreshed it, they've prioritised, they put a timeline on it, and they've assembled the funds to make it happen.
I've seen the plans. I'm excited by the plans. I was here with, as we say, the discussion with representatives from the supporters group, and there was almost an audible gasp in the room as they were shared. Ruaridh, you want to start telling us about what's on the horizon? And very close.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly exciting, especially being a Raith Rover supporter, seeing exactly what you can actually do with this stand. I mean, this year is the 100th year anniversary of the stand actually being completed, and it's quite fitting that we've got such big plans for what we can do with the stand to also bring back more income into the club. So, I mean, it's going to be potentially a new hospitality suite downstairs through the back. We're looking at improving the standards for the players. One thing that's been quite apparent, especially speaking to Ian Murray and the players, is the standard that they're having to put up with on a day-to-day basis in terms of the kind of hot water that they don't have on certain training days. But also just we want to create an elite environment around the stand. Like, we want people to feel proud to walk into this and to play for Raith Rovers. So it's going to be a new home changing room. The away changing room is going to be moved to what is now the boardroom. That allows us to have a bigger kind of physio gym room where the current away changing room is. And then in terms of generating more revenue, we're going to have more hospitality space downstairs through the back where the now kind of physio room is, which I believe is going to have about 80 people in that room. So it's incredibly exciting, not just in raising the standards for the players and for everyone who's coming through that front door, but also bringing more revenue in with another hospitality suite. That's the internal, Andy. There's got externally, Starks Park's going to look different from Pratt Street.
I mean, just following on from Ruaridh, let's be clear, the players are not, they're not operating in squalor here. They're well looked after at the minute, but it's again raising the standard. So if we want to get to where we want to get to on the pitch, then the whole environment needs to go up. Ruaridh said it, elite environment. That's what you have to have in place at a football club.
And these things matter when you're recruiting or trying to retain players.
It's important. It is important to players. They think about it. It comes into their decision making. It's twofold investment in terms of what we're talking about. It's about that first and foremost in terms of that elite environment, creating an environment that's going to make players better on a daily basis. but also again investing in money generators. So hospitality, the fan experience, everything like that is going to be hopefully going to bring more money into the club in the sort of medium to long term. So that's really the crux of the investment. There has to be staged. There's not a big pot of money to go and throw a lot of money at things. So it's got to be staged. We've got to prioritise, and that's what we spoke about. And that's fans will see that over the next week or so. There'll be some more meat in the bones, and they'll understand a bit more what the plan is and what the different phases are.
But work begins pretty much immediately at the start of next week as the season finishes Friday night. Yeah,
there's a time limit obviously on the players' environment. We have a short window, a very short window to get things done for the return pre-season. So that's the sort of most pressing matter. So that's why phase one will be the sort of football environment, and we'll, as you say, we'll be kicking on with that very, very soon.
And the hospitality is important, but that's the football club.
Yeah.
The other 340 days of the year is the community foundation and other activities, and they can actually potentially generate more revenue for the club than hospitality. Now the problem with the Raith suite is there's no disabled access, and one of the issues with the stand is that upstairs is not at the same level. So it's not just about putting in one elevator. You technically have to put in 3 if you wanted to cover all the bases. So if you get an 80-seater hospitality function room downstairs for 25 days of the year, you've got 340 days in which it can either be rented out for funerals, weddings, parties, whatever, or it can be used by the community foundation. And I believe, I've not met him yet, but Paul Wilson, who's ex-Dundee United, has recently joined as a new director over there, and we'll look forward to sit down talking to him about how we can maximise their usage and therefore the football club revenue from the stadium.
Ruaridh, long term, tell us about proposed changes to the current office environment. People who have seen the kind of frontage of the stadium, kind of regressing over the years, and indeed they'll see that there's a bit of works kind of tentatively started out to the very front kind of garden area, if we could call it that.
Yes, I mean, it's just touching on what John said there. I mean, one of the other things is to try and bring people to Starks Park in other days of the week. I think one of the big plans that I think Colin Smart's definitely excited about is potentially moving the offices to kind of the hill outside of the main stand, right next to the steps. So on the kind of top level, there's going to be the offices and what will be the club shop. We're looking at replacing the current offices with a sports bar. And then underneath the new offices and the shop, there's going to be a kind of food kiosk, food hut that will be open 7 days a week, and that'll allow us to capitalise on the Barrowman school children who are moving in hordes down from the school to Morrison's every single lunchtime to go and buy their lunch. So that will allow us to have a kind of seating area outside, and then also this kind of food kiosk serving kind of street food 7 days per week. So that'll bring in a lot more income to the club, but it's also just getting people back using the facilities and start to feel that belonging with the football club. I mean, that's one word that we've been talking a lot about in all of our meetings as a group, is belonging and leaving no one behind. And I think that's key, is if we can get people to the match day 30 minutes before and they're going into the sports bar and they're using the burger hut, or if we can get people into the hospitality suites more outside of match days as well, like John said, through community, it's only making people feel more part of this football club that in turn will hopefully build the supporter base, because that's exactly what we need to do.
Now, just on the space that's there, that had to be cleared because the stadium was moving down into the garage next door. So that's part of the project. But all the topsoil, all the soil that was there is currently stored in the North Car Park. So once the new building has been put in place, the soil will be moved back to recreate a smaller but a genuine remembrance garden, because that was used by a number of families for remembrance of loved ones who had been Raith supporters over the years.
We spoke about creativity in the board. It's such a ingenious idea. We've seen how popular street food is with the hipster community. Well, we're bringing it to Barrowman, and who would have thought, perhaps street food, it was made for it, wasn't it?
Well, I think Colin Smart has to take the credit for the idea. It's probably what he's been most excited about in getting it all set up. But I think it is a great idea. I mean, I think having the money that could be raised from that, because of the amount of children that are walking down Pratt Street towards Morrison's every single day for lunch, I mean, it's a no-brainer to then capitalise on that. But then also on match day, and if we do have the sports bar open on match day and you're bringing fans there maybe 1 hour before kick-off instead of 5 minutes before kick-off, they're likely going buy a burger or something outside as well. So it'll be interesting to see just how much money can be raised from that, yeah.
Just what you said, David, I think it's important to go back to that, the dream team. Don't want to label as that, we don't want to be known as that, but the skill set within the group, that's Colin's passion, building things. For him to have the insight to see that and have the forefront to see that that's an opportunity for the club, for the business, then again it goes back to sort of everyone bringing something different to the table.
Although in fairness, the person who identified the revenue stream was Bob Farmer, and he brought that up a number of years ago.
Right.
But at that point in time it related to the North Car Park, and it certainly wasn't anywhere as exciting as street food. I think it was a chippy.
Well, like you say, we've got ingenuity, we've got creativity, but you've got people who've got a heritage and an ability to project manage these things through to conclusion, as opposed to looks great in paper, but where does it go? I mean, I'm really interested in Andy, you and I were talking about the fact that this is going to be infrastructure led rather than just throwing a huge sum at a playing budget. We must be in the Premier League at all costs, which I think anybody other than a very naive supporter would say is unsustainable. Tell us about the kind of ethos behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about investing. I think it's easy to go throwing money at a centre forward that you hope's going to score you the goals to get to the next level. Yeah, of course, investment can influence what happens on a Saturday, but really you have no control of what happens on the pitch. So what we have to do is, again, I'll go back to it, create that environment, create a place where it allows for people to perform at their highest and improve while they're here. And that's really long term. It's about, I touched on it last night, it's about creating a club that people can be proud of, us as a group, and also the fans. That's the most important, for the fans to be proud of, you know, coming along to the game. Really, what happens between 3 and 5 o'clock shouldn't really matter. It's about belonging and coming here and creating a community asset for the local community that they fall in love with again. If we get that, then I think we'll have a better chance of getting some wins on a Saturday afternoon.
Let's come to that, because fan engagement, building the community, these are things that are easily said, easily thrown about across any community. Obviously we're more focused in Scotland, but worldwide really. But certainly from, in the kind of periphery, what's been happening, I see that you're looking at a different model. It is quite unusual, and something that we wholeheartedly embrace, that before we've had a bank of journalists sitting asking questions. You've met with the stakeholders across all of the supporters groups. I'm not sitting here with my colleagues in a room full of journalists. You've came to Club TV first, because the most direct way of speaking with your supporter base is through the club channel. What more can you do, and what excites you about this journey of re-engaging people and re-energising the community, but the supporters?
I think from my perspective as a supporter, I think we need to start looking at how we can improve the matchday experience. And now I've been working with the Raith Forum for a number of years, and it's always been the topic of discussion, and it's very difficult sometimes to get things done. I learned that myself with the COPA project, and also Donate a Ticket, is sometimes you just have to go and do something. And I think with what we've got planned, I think first and foremost we need to engage with the South Stand boys, or the kind of ultras scene within Raith Rovers, and see how we can kind of attract them to come to more home games, and also try and facilitate that by giving them budgets in terms of whether that be flags, drums, even merchandise. We've seen, I think a lot of us have seen how well Dunfermline are doing with that. St Mirren have also had massive success there. So I think we're going to try and engage with them very soon to try and create more of an atmosphere at home, because as I said last night, if you're a young 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 8-year-old coming to football matches, you're not really watching exactly what's going on in the park. You're more interested looking at all the grown men around you shouting, swearing and singing, and wanting to be part of it. I remember when I was younger, and at the back of the South Stand, Fife's Finest were 3 or 4 kind of rows deep of people, grown men, drunk, singing songs, and all I wanted to do was be part of it. I didn't want to sit with my dad down the front of the South Stand. I wanted to be up singing with them, and I think that's why we can bring that back. We can bring an atmosphere back to Starks Park. There's ways that we can do it that we're looking at. But also with everyone else is we know that the support is there. We've seen it with the cup final this year. We saw it with Ibrox. There are fans that will come to the games, but then you have to control the controllables when they do turn up and make it as enjoyable experience as possible. And that's why I think we need to get engaging with the younger fans, engaging with schools, trying to bring them to Starks Park, making them feel welcome. Belonging is a big part of it, as I've said. They need to see a friendly face. They need to feel like they're coming home. And then hopefully, in time, a lot of them will become season ticket holders, they'll buy merchandise, and they will generate more revenue for the football club for long-term success.
You're looking at the season ticket packages just now, looking at the promos, looking at the notion that goes behind that. Early news you can give us in terms of some encouraging decisions?
Yeah, I mean, I could take this one. The big one is that under 12s are going to be free. That's a kind of statement we want to make, and it kind of backs up exactly what we're sitting here talking to you guys about today. Is we want to engage more with younger supporters, and I think the first step there is making under 12s season tickets free.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work done in the background over the last few months in terms of getting ready. It's been an uncertain period, but I think it was important that we hit the ground running. So there's been a lot of groundwork done in terms of season tickets, commercial, things like that. So there'll be some exciting news coming pretty soon.
We're not obviously going to cover absolutely everything today because there's lots of moving parts, but they can experience as a supporter from young through the ages, the sponsorship options, the hospitality options. These are all things that you're looking to grow from a reasonable foundation, but I think that everybody would say with investment of not only money but time, that we can take these further. Yeah,
I mean, I think the other thing from my perspective is, and a big thing that we spoke about last night, is there will be visible change, and I think that's what will excite supporters over the coming months. I mean, we've spoken a lot about the stand, but even from my perspective, I'm going to be working very closely with volunteers, working very closely with you guys as well, to try and build a new website. We want to have a kind of best-in-class Premier League standard website, as a lot of other clubs at our size have already. I think ours is kind of a little bit below standard, but that's no disrespect to the people who have been working on it just now, but they've been working with a shoestring budget on it. I think with social media as well, there's ways that we can improve that. We're talking about engaging young supporters. We don't have a TikTok account. We need to have a proper run YouTube account. All of these little things, they do compound, and I think it has been underestimated by the club previously, and that's why hopefully with my expertise and also working with a range of volunteers, we'll be able to upskill people and kind of improve our communication digitally as well.
Okay. For many watching the interview, business, infrastructure, expanding revenue streams, brilliant, great, but how will this change affect the playing budget? How will we be set in terms of retaining our best players? And what's the communication been like with our management team? Maybe come at yourself on that, Andy.
Yeah, again, similar to commercial, there's been a lot of work done in the background. It's not been ideal. It's been a difficult situation, I think, for the players and the manager, more importantly. But there has been a lot of work done. The discussion started a number of weeks ago. They'll be finalised. There's live offers there to current players. We're looking at external recruitment as well. So there's been a lot of groundwork done, and again there'll be some exciting news in the next week or so. So it's we've officially started, but I think the work started some time ago. So it's important you get a short window to go and make some changes. And it is transition. There is going to be some changes, and it's inevitable when there's a new regime, so to speak. But yeah, that work started a little while ago.
We know that money's not going to be thrown at comical levels at the playing staff, but are we able to use words like competitive and healthy in terms of the playing budget?
Absolutely. I think that if you go back in time, and it sort of came up at the AGM, if you look at last season, which was John McGlynn's last season, the board at the time backed the manager to try to get promotion, and the actual spend on the player budget was 50% above the previous year when we'd finished third. We're almost second, we finished third. Okay, we'll back the manager, we'll go for it. So that was a 50% increase. We'd had those discussions, and I think it's documented that John knew that was a one-off go for glory, and it would have to be scaled back. He made the choice to move on. That's fine. But yes, our budget, as I understand it from having listened to other directors, will be competitive. Now, the joker is foreign investors who may come in and throw money at other clubs. But I don't think that's going to be an issue this year. And I think that Andrew and his team, and it's not just Andrew, he's got other people working on it, you know, strange things like scouting systems and checking players' background and their history is going to make a big difference. And I think we'll get far better value for money. I think Alan Halliday will help us on the players' contracts, because Andrew will come to me and he'll shake his head. He said, "Have you seen that contract? How did that happen?"
In terms of squeezing extra value and making every pound really count, you've got football agent experience as well, but we've gone through the people that are coming in terms of the investment side. Can you tell us about what role you'll play in the footballing side, but also we've got John Potter coming in. Can you expand on his position?
Yeah, again, it's about putting a structure in place around the football club. So I think John Potter will be coming in as technical director. That'll be his title, and it's about him building a structure around the club. So it comes in medical, sports science, data analysis, recruitment, all of that. You know, I think modern day football, it's unrealistic to expect a manager to be able to do that to the levels that we want to do it. But it's also, I think, realistic in modern day football that I think the club should have that structure in place. Obviously, the final decision will always fall with the first team manager. There is no question of that. But I think it's about having an overall structure within a club. We always talk about football being different from any other business, and it is, because there's emotion involved. But also, you wouldn't allow a manager to come in and rip up a business time after time. The shelf life of a football manager is very, very short. So again, it's about that long-term sustainability, a structure in place, and members of staff. All of us plug into that, and it's there in place. And
it's also about a player pathway and working with the community foundation. At the moment, they get up to about 16.
Yeah.
You know, the last few years have not been helped by the chopping and changing at an SPFL level. We had the Development League, and then we sort of had a Reserve League, and then we had the Premier League putting their B teams into the Lowland League, and now we're going back to talking about a Reserve League again. We need to have something to replace FIFA, which disappeared, and we got some good players coming through from FIFA. So I know that John will be working with the Community Foundation with Wayne Carroll on that. And we need to evolve and document this Raith Rovers approach to playing football. And it's sort of emerged over the last few years, partly because we've had the artificial surface. We also need to look at getting a competitive ladies team back. But these are just a few of the things that Andrew's got to do between midnight and 2 in the morning. I mean, last night he sent me an email at 10:30.
Too soon for change for this coming season?
Yes.
Is it academy? Is it B teams? Is it reserve teams? Is that all in the mix and under the kind of realm of what John's post will be? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. What we say, we have a fantastic community club. I know firsthand. I deal with them in my business and on a day-to-day basis. We have a fantastic, hundreds of kids. It's about getting that. Community club's about participation. It's about local kids playing football. At some point, that needs to become an elite pathway to the first team. It needs to become about developing first team players. Now, there's pros and cons at what age that kicks in, and we'll discuss all that. Again, some of it's financial restraints and what we can do, but absolutely, we had looked at having a sort of, maybe not a B team, but having a pool of players, younger players that sat alongside the first team and complemented the first team squad, but also was more longer term view. We looked at getting that in place for next season, this coming season. I think it's too pushed to do it the right way. I think it would be forced. I think it would be rushed. So we're looking at for the following season. But again, we are also identifying younger players. There's lots of the players get released from higher levels, and we are looking at maybe not come in and play 20, 30 games for the first team right now, but they can complement the squad, and it's about a longer term view. So we are looking at all that. Again, that's part of John's remit, to organise all that and pull all that together and give us some direction, while obviously answering to the board of directors and the direction of the overall club. Ruaridh, in terms of your life as a football supporter, you'll know that when cuts have to be made in football clubs, it's usually non-playing staff that are kind of looked at first. But what we're seeing is a kind of growth and an investment in the non-football and infrastructure beyond what I can recall in my time at Raith Rovers. There's another addition in that we're going to have a commercial lead coming in as well. Were you able to say anything about that role and that person?
Yeah, so Greg McEwen's going to be joining as a kind of commercial manager, helping out with the club. Greg's got vast experience operating at the top level in Scottish football. He was commercial manager at Hibs for quite some time. He was interim CEO for I think 9 months at Hibs, and now he's going to set up his own consultancy business. So he's going to be coming in and helping, and he's been actually working with the club for now the last 3-4 months, and he's already kind of putting the motions in place of how we can improve our commercial offering for next season.
Another exciting stream.
It could potentially be the best signing the club will make in the summer. It's that important. I think commercial revenue from where we are to where we want to get to, it's a very important signing for us. So if you want to talk football speak, but Greg's very motivated. He's actually a local guy as well. He used to come with his dad to the games, which helps. I think it ignites that sort of passion inside as well. So he'll be a great addition. And Ruaridh's right, he's been working for 3-4 months now already. So there's a lot of groundwork being put in place so that again we can hit the ground running.
And he's looking not just at the local market, but at the national market. And for all some of Mike Delius's ideas, he was very focused on the global market. Now let's start with the national market before we take Raith Rovers global. But for instance, Rory was talking about the under-12s for free. Now, it would be unfair not to mention John Reid, who's been pushing this for years and not getting much progress. But it's easy enough saying they're for free. We've got to get them committed. We've got to rebuild the engagement with youth clubs, with primary schools, with other community centres. The last time I was back, I was talking to the people at Linton Lane, for instance. And we've really got to do that not just for Kirkcaldy, but for what I would call our catchment area. And there's a lot of schools, that's a lot of work. It's not something that can happen easily. And it's not something that we can expect Greg to deal with. He needs to look at the commercial side. So there's a lot of other things that we've got to put in place to make these things happen. And the classic with the under-12s is, in the discussions I've been having, is how do we deal with the adults who need to supervise them? So what we've got to look at is a scheme where we give for every 10 children 2 adult passes and work out some way that it's not abused, but different adults can come and use that to bring the group of 10 children, whether it be from Donegal Primary School, if it still exists, or the West, or wherever, to games.
I'm going to ask you a question, just I guess maybe even just for the heart here as a Raith Rovers supporter. You know, we've been told that, you know, from 20 years ago we'll become the third force in Scottish football, and a complete overdose of navy blue sky thinking about the Premier League's just on the horizon, and I think we've got a bit of fatigue thinking about these targets. So I'm going to ask you something much more short term. What does success look like between now and the end of season 23-24?
I think, again, I touched on it last night when a similar question was posed. I think if we can build a club that the fans are proud of, I think that's success. You know, again, we can't influence what happens on a Saturday at 3 o'clock. We have no control about that. Control the controllables, as Rory says. And I think if we can put the measures in place that we're trying to do, get people belonging to the club again, I think that for me will be the biggest success.
Yeah, I mean, one thing for me for the group is also delivering on what we're promising. Like that'll be the one thing that we'll measure ourselves on as well come the end of next season. And then within that, like you said, Davey, I mean, we don't want to come in and start talking about, oh, we're going to be in the Premier League next year, or even we're going to be in the Premier League in 3 years' time. What we want to do is actually build the foundations for long-term success so that when we do get to the Premier League, which is hopefully very soon, then we're going to stay there for quite some time. I mean, if we can improve our commercial offering, if we can get more supporters through the gate, if we can get more season tickets sold, then that in itself will be a success that we can be measured on by the end of next season.
John, what about yourself?
To me, I think we really need to sort the football side, support the management team, get the right players in, and you talked a little bit about back office support. I mean, it was 2 seasons ago that we invested in the full-time sports scientist, full-time digital analyst, and we got the GPS system, and we got all sorts of wonderful TV systems that I don't quite understand, that I don't think we've used to their full potential. And I think Andrew can bring that experience of different clubs and what's best in class and can take us to the next level.
I think what John's talking about, it's a culture. It's not just a culture on the playing side, it's a culture throughout the club. And I think if we can drive that culture on a daily basis, then people will come with you. People will come on that journey. And again, what does good look like? People might think good is what they're seeing every day today. It's not, it needs to be better.
And see, Andrew's point is very valid, that to an extent you can't control what happens on a Saturday, because at best you can influence 11 of the players on the field. You don't really know what the other 11 are going to do. But if you do look at the Livingston story, if you look at the Hamilton story, remember Hamilton were the guys that we kicked out, and they then took a less well-supported club to the Premier League for a number of years. It may be that they end up in the Seaside League next year. But if we can have the good infrastructure behind it, we're always in there with a chance.
We've got a kind of shared commitment that we'll meet more regularly, and there's a whole world of Raith Rovers history to explore. What would your kind of parting message be to any open-minded Raith Rovers fan looking in and getting ready to embrace this change?
Yeah, come with us. Come on the journey with us. It's going to be an exciting journey. A lot of hard work. It's a big job ahead of all of us. But come and show that belief in us and get behind us, because we need it. We're going to need everyone to pull together. It's a collective team effort. When I say that, I mean include the fans in that. Everyone has to get behind what we're trying to achieve here, and if they do that, then we've got a better chance of achieving what we want to achieve.
Ruaridh, we've seen what the darkest times look like, but a particular phrase you've used in discussion myself is it's about a rebuild, it's about growth, and I like the notion of no matter where we've been, we're moving forward and we want to leave nobody behind.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously going to be apprehension with change and with new ownership, but I mean, as a Raith Rovers fan, a lifelong fan that hopefully will be known around the club, I'm very excited by it, and that's not just from my involvement. I mean, I wouldn't be getting involved in this capacity if I didn't really believe in the vision that kind of Dean and Andy sold to me when I first had the conversation. I'm very excited about it. I think we've spent a lot of time sitting down and looking at what our values are as a consortium, what we think the club values should be, based on what our personal values are and what we think we can bring to the table. And the one value that we're really kind of surrounding ourselves with is belonging, and the tagline being leaving no one behind. And like Andy said, if there's any supporter watching this that feels that they've got anything that they can add to what we're doing and wants to get involved, then please reach out, because we want to build that network of volunteers, because the stronger group that we have as a collective, the more chance of success we're going to have as a football club.
And that connection and that reconnection can start tonight. Bring a friend for a fiver. The game streamed on RaithTV without location barrier. A great opportunity for people to show what our potential fan base is.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Come along. I mean, I think we're the only team with nothing to play for tonight, but it's a Friday night. Come along, enjoy the game, and get excited for what's going to come next season, because you'll start to see the changes very soon, visually, outside of the stadium, digitally as well, with what I'm going to be working on with social media and the website, and it is a genuinely really exciting time.
Tonight might be the last game of the season, but it's also the first game of next season. It starts now.
You've done this before, Andy, haven't you?
No.
We're absolutely enthused to be part of it, and we'll thank you for the connection you made with RaithTV. It helps us to take the word to supporters, and I like the notion that the most important people here in terms of receiving messages are my fellow supporters. We wish you every bit of success, and we really look forward to going on the journey with you.
Thanks, Davey. Cheers.